Well, hello there, you beautiful, beautiful, amazing, wonderful people. This is video 2 of I Have No Idea. Definitely video 2 though, so if you've only seen one today, you've missed one. Wodo, wait. After this one, go and find it. It will be somewhere. I might even pin it in the pinned comment down below. Who knows, you're looking absolutely amazing, I must add. But anyway, what are we talking about in this video? We're talking about irrelevant PCAs. Now, what I want you to do is comment down below if you're someone who follows crime, follows criminal cases. You have an interest in true crime. I'm struggling with English today. It's not my native language. Well, I was born in Italy, but long story. If you've been around the channel long enough, you'll know. But anyway, what I'm talking about in this video, what I am talking about right now is this here, right? Irrelevant PCAs. We're going to come back to it, but first of all, I need to, because this is going to be talking about Ray and why I feel Ray is actually involved in this case and what you need to understand about the irrelevant PCA and why the PCA is irrelevant. Is it even, again, have you ever known a situation where a PCA has been deemed irrelevant previously? Again, let me know down below. When he was taken into custody, you're not going to be able to read this unless you've got a magnifying glass, but I need it on the screen for my own eyes and don't know how to zoom it. When he was taken into custody, Labar told Law and Crime's Anjanette Levy that Kohberger spoke with law enforcement for 5 to 15 minutes at the Pennsylvania State Police Barracks following his arrest early last Friday morning. Initially, Kohberger waived his Miranda rights, but then requested an attorney. Labar said Kohberger told him that police asked his client if he understood what was going on, and he responded by saying something to the effect of, "Yes, I'm certainly aware what's going on. I'm 10 miles away from this." So again, he is affirming that he knows that there's been this crime happen, which, if we take into consideration Bryan Kohberger was looking it up from around the 16th, he knows that it happened. I don't think there's anyone in Washington or in Moscow, Idaho, that didn't know that this crime had happened. In fact, by the 16th, I would say that pretty much the entire fucking world knew about it. But anyway, then Labar said Kohberger invoked his rights to counsel and asked for an attorney. Moscow police said they seized a 2015 white Hyundai Elantra. Labar confirmed Kohberger drove that vehicle. Police had initially asked last month for any information about a 2011 to 2013 white Hyundai Elantra. Now, let's just take into consideration, I need to come back up here because we have been, and JB Gunner raised this, right? He turns around and says, we believe that some of the images that they had, you couldn't really tell what the car was, right? You couldn't really tell what it was. It looked fucking grainy. And then all of a sudden, this Dateline thing comes out, and the clarity in these images are so much better. So much better. Which then has the effect, like it did on the likes of JB Gunner, where they'll turn around and say, I didn't realise that the footage was so much clearer. So you can really see that that is Bryan Kohberger's car. But they're simultaneously forgetting that FBI specialists would have had all this footage, and that is how they determined what car they were looking at in the first place. So even a specialist FBI agent looking into this car right at the beginning of the case said 2011 to 2013. Now, it was changed later. You know, we have to be open with that and say that he did eventually come back and say, actually, I'd like that to be extended. But it was 2011 to 2013, and the skeptics amongst us would think, was that just broadened after you knew that you was or had your eyes on Bryan Kohberger, and his just happened to be a 2015? So you moved the goalposts. Again, I'm not saying that that's exactly what happened, but the skeptics amongst us will consider that, bearing in mind if they had this real clear footage then, the real clear footage, then how is it that the specialist FBI agent still wasn't able to determine that that was Bryan Kohberger's 2015 Hyundai Elantra? Is it because it's not quite as clear, the actual car itself, than you may consider? Who knows? But consider it. Anyway, I must carry on, right? So here we go. Labar confirmed he drove that vehicle. White Hyundai, blah, blah, blah. Right, so it says White Hyundai Elantra and said they had registrations for over 22,000 vehicles that matched that description. Police executed search warrants at Kohberger's apartment in Pullman and seized several items and also searched his parents' home in Pennsylvania. Kohberger arrived in Pennsylvania in mid-December, Labar said. His father flew to Washington to make the drive back with his son in what Labar said was a trip planned before the start of the school year. Labar said father and son left Pullman sometime between December 13th and December 16th in an effort to beat the incoming snowstorm. Bryan isn't denying he was in Pullman through mid-December, Labar said. He also said he assumes law enforcement has his GPS data available through his mobile phone. And I think here is a big clue here. Bryan Kohberger had a speciality, if you like, or a furthered interest in cloud-based forensics. He's interested in this sort of stuff, right? Interested in GPS data and all of this kind of thing. He literally states right back early when, they've got my phone. Remember, Bryan Kohberger claims to have said, I'm eager to be exonerated. Quite confident, and yeah, I'm eager to be exonerated. And he specifically mentions that they have got my phone. So I'm sure that they'll get my GPS data and they'll be able to find. Now, I want you to hear me out for a second because obviously Cy Ray is involved in this case. And I wonder whether Bryan Kohberger is going down the route of, I don't do it. You need to consider for a moment that Bryan Kohberger may have been wrongfully arrested. And this was about, I don't know, reverse engineering a case. Perhaps somebody pointed the finger at Bryan Kohberger. They needed to make it fit. I'm trying to work out what was in it for Cy Ray, who already had a fantastic reputation. He had so much ahead of him, nothing to gain through getting involved in the Bryan Kohberger situation, and equally could have got involved in the Bryan Kohberger situation to assist in the prosecution and an execution of a dangerous person through using his technology. But no, he comes forward and says you're wrong. Now, if Bryan Kohberger's turned around and said, look, I have my phone on me all the time. I go out driving, I go out hiking, and I've got my phone on me. Get the specialist in the field in. Cy Ray starts looking at things and notes that the information that they have is not right. There is things missing. The claims they're making they can't make because there is missing information. Bryan Kohberger was adamant, I didn't do this crime. I had my phone on me. I was here. I was doing this, whatever. I was driving around, but I had my phone on me. I always had my phone on me. And then you see the PCA and the confusion around where it's actually placing Bryan Kohberger. Like, they're even saying that he went to this area. They're trying to push the narrative that Bryan Kohberger went to this area 20-odd times with his phone on him. Or every time he's going there, 20-odd times. Do you think that someone who was planning a mass fucking murder, and all right, you're trying to say that he's surveilling this house, why in the blue monkey fuck balls would he have been going there all this time and taking his phone every time? Do you think that he wouldn't understand that that is going to form a pattern of movement? That wouldn't be used against him. He would have put his fucking phone at home and left it there. That just goes to the numerous mistakes that you have to attribute to Bryan Kohberger if you believe he did this crime. It ain't just about Amazon purchases. It ain't just about a ski mask purchase. It ain't just about Google and serial killers when he's a criminology student, or some creepy texts that weren't creepy at all from a pool party, or interactions with police officers that are fine. There was nothing wrong with them whatsoever. Or the fact that he fucking tickled some fucking weirdo on Tinder fucking years ago. The only person who's rarely really come forward apart from students who have a problem because they have a problem with fucking TAs. And that's just the way it is. I know that firsthand. Well, not firsthand, secondhand. But do you know what I mean? It is what it is. But with respect of Ray coming in this, a PCA that is deemed irrelevant because it literally... What people can't understand is the law enforcement here, they basically place Bryan Kohberger away from the property in the vicinity of a tower that services the house. At no point do they place him at the property. They can't place him there. And they have to turn around. This entire case is based on a knife sheath that you have to trust was dropped by Bryan Kohberger. He left his DNA on it. And all of the subsequent work that they've now fucking hidden, boo-pooed, whatever, and made up a different excuse. You've got to believe that all that is authentic. There is authenticity to it. That nothing could have been done that shouldn't have been done there. And I think it's fair to say that there were things done around that shouldn't have been done. That wasn't all done above board, and we don't have all of the written documentation to support its journey. That whole situation is fucked. So then what do you have to rely on? You have to rely upon the absence of evidence to prove he was there. And the absence of evidence is Bryan Kohberger's phone being switched off. That is the only evidence. That is the key evidence in this case. Bryan Kohberger's phone being switched off. Because if there is phone data, if there is data available that places Bryan Kohberger in a situation that throws off the timeline, then they have a problem. And I believe that the PCA was deemed irrelevant because there was a possibility that the PCA was a noose round the prosecution's neck, because contained within that PCA, there was information that could have further exonerated Bryan Kohberger. But people just didn't pay close enough attention. The absence of evidence in this case is not evidence, especially when you've got a specialist in this who has come forward and said, that's not right, there's data missing, you have access to it. They're turning around and saying, we don't. The judge is literally calling him a conspiracy theorist. And look, something really wrong in this case. There is something really wrong in it. And anybody around this case should be of a mindset that this system should be transparent. It should be able to show you everything, so you are clear on what is happening, what has been done. And, you know, yes, if there's stuff in there that would potentially harm an individual, that's very, very different. But when, with respect of learning how someone was found and the procedures that were taken in order to get there, and when you've got these specialists who are saying conflicting things, you should start raising your eyebrows and saying, hold on, something's not right yet. But as I started at the beginning of this video, I'm going to ask you one more time. If you're someone involved in watching, listening to, interested in crime, have you ever been in a situation like this where the very document that was utilised for the arrest of the individual, the actual arrest of the individual, is deemed irrelevant? And as with the first video, we're now in a situation where behind closed doors, they have to come up with some story about how they actually got to find and charge the person accused of this heinous act. How is that a thing? Love you all, and I'll catch you all later. Mwah.